Hello, and welcome back to I'll Watch What They're Watching, where we are curious and adamant about cinema. I am one of your hosts. My name is Kyrie.
And I am your other host, Adam. Fun fact for us, this is the first time we've actually ever talked to each other.
That is very true. We have done a lot of texting. We have discussed having phone calls, but this is the first time, I've heard your voice.
Right, so nice to meet you.
Yeah, same.
Nice to meet everyone else listening.
So, Adam, what's kind of your relationship to film? Like, what first gave you a love for movies?
Sure, I think with most people it starts with family. Kind of your typical dad movie, right? Dad's going to pull out some random movie that he has a connection with and he's going to show the whole family, and there'll be times you're looking around wondering exactly what's going on here, but for the most part, it's a good experience, one of those core memories and things that you hold on to. We'd kind of make some big events out of movies as well growing up. Christmas became a very common opportunity for us to go out and see movies. As a teenager, you start going to the movie with your friends. So I have some specific memories as well there with a couple different friends that I would go see some of your big action blockbusters and, big kaiju monsters fighting robots and Transformers and all those different types of things with your buddies to just kind of be like, yeah, this is awesome. In the last couple of years, I would say I've really kind of developed this deeper sort of appreciation and willingness to track and engage and follow what's going on in the community and start to notice what I like about movies, what I like about film, and what makes a movie a good movie. So I'm really excited. I would consider myself fairly green, fairly new when it comes to a lot of, but at the same time, everyone has a bunch of movies they grow up with. Everyone watches movies. No one's really green. But when it's some of these conversations, I think I do tend to lean a little bit more of, yeah, I'll watch that, let you know what I think. So I'm very excited for this podcast and excited about movies and the industry in general. So that's a little bit about me. Tell me about yours. I know you have some very specific career aspirations, and sorry I'm spoiling that for you, but
No, yeah. Mine kind of started in the same spot with my dad. To this day, we call each other, movie buddy. I have very fond memories of seeing, Lord of the Rings, James Bond, going to the theater, Star Wars, going to the theaters and seeing him with him specifically. Really got into kind of theater and the arts in high school. It wasn't as much movies. And then I actually remember like the key moment. I was at college and I was trying to figure out what to do with my life. And I went and saw Skyfall with some buddies and was talking, and it like hit me like a bolt of lightning. I called my dad afterwards and I said, I think I need to direct movies. And he was like, yeah, I think you do. And so that's kind of where it started. I was at BYU at the time. I explored film at BYU. Realized I didn't actually like making movies. I just really liked talking about them. Analysis, critiquing film history, how film impacts culture, how culture impacts film. That's what I realized I liked, and I was like, oh, there's not a degree for that. Fast forward now, turns out there is a degree for it. Not every school offers it, but yeah, as of quite recently, this upcoming fall, I will be attending my first semester at CU Boulder as a Bachelor of Arts for Film Studies, and it's like actually the critical studies part of it, which is the stuff that I like.
hooray, that is so exciting.
Thank you. I'm very, very excited. So I don't know, as far as like I've kind of been in the film sphere for a handful of years. I would say probably for the past 10-ish years, I've been kind of 8 to 10 kind of been in that sphere, but only the past 4 or 5 have I really started kind of like really being more active on Letterboxd, writing. I think our listeners are going to like you more than me.
No, that's...
I do think that. Because I think I'm going to be a little bit more critical.
Well...
But who knows? I know there's a movie on my list that you've given 3.5 stars, which I think is blasphemy, but we'll get there.
Well, we'll get there. And, people come with different opinions, and you listen to different podcasts, and you tend to gravitate towards some people and know, I'm going to avoid that one that person maybe liked a little bit more. So I have no doubts that I have some takes that people are not going to like either. Absolutely no worries there. it could be an interesting dynamic a little bit too. I found myself recently as I've been looking at films and movies that are coming out of just kind of breaking it down of how and why did this get made? Like, what were the motivations behind it? How did all these people come together? So I'm really excited to look at some of that part. And so, we'll bounce off each other, and you'll focus on the things you focus on and like, and I'll focus on the things I focus on and like. We'll come together and it'll be a great melding.
I agree. I know we're both super excited. Yeah, I guess with that, we'll dive into the first episode. So, kind of our idea just to kick off the podcast and to get to know not only each other, but, to allow our listeners to kind of get to know us. We just figured, classic top 5 favorite movies. And one of the things we want to do is about once a month do various top 5s, which some of them will be ones that we come up with. We might throw it to, our listeners if they want to hear a top 5. I'm regretting already. I'm like, man, some audience members going to be like, top 5 Disney live action remakes. And I'm just going to be like, son of a.
Sure. Who doesn't love rankings? Who doesn't
Right.
love roasting people for their rankings? So it'll be a good time.
Yeah, so pretty basic top 5, just top 5 favorite films. So, how did you pick your top 5? Like, what does a top 5 or like favorite film mean to you?
In a lot of ways, this work has already been done for me because of a little app called Letterboxd, right? And you see a lot of social media. If you follow Letterboxd, they're always going to the red carpet premieres and asking these famous actors and actresses, what's your Letterboxd top 4? And so it's this big thing. You got to make sure that you have a good Letterboxd top 4. And so I don't know when I got Letterboxd, but I have it. So I've kind of looked at this before. But as I was getting ready for this podcast, I did have one of those. Is this movie really like a top 5 film? And the answer is probably maybe not. But the way that it shaped me and the way that it's had an impact in my life or kind of framed me or a key moment in my life, I think is why the particular movies I chose are in my top 5. So I'm glad we're doing more top 5 episodes. So I think especially as you start looking at if we did like a top 5 of the last 5 years or something like that, that'll help me focus myself a lot more into some of the different aspects of cinematography or acting or story and those types of things that I can shout out a little bit more instead of talking about, I just loved this movie when I was 8. What about you?
Kind of in the same boat. The ones that I picked are, yeah, maybe not my best film or like the best films or films that I think are the best films ever made, but they are my 5 favorite films.
Exactly. We'll have plenty of times to be pretentious in this podcast, so no worries
I'm
about
sure
that.
will.
But and same thing, there's one on my letterbox that is my pretentious pick. I really like the movie, but it did not make this list, but
That was Vertigo, right?
right.
Okay, yeah. Which I'm sure, again, we will talk about Vertigo at some point. All right. Well, let's dive in. What is your number 5?
Okay, my number 5 favorite movie is School of Rock. Now, Kiri, we had some conversations this last week, and you have not seen School of Rock. So I thought it would be fun if you told us what the summary of the plot of School of Rock is. I'm genuinely curious what you can say about this movie.
I think I'm actually going to be pretty accurate because I want to say I've looked at the summary before. I know enough about the film. I just haven't seen it. But I want to say Jack Black plays a teacher and he takes a bunch of like ragtag kids who are either they're not good at something. Maybe they're not good at school and he uses music to connect, or maybe they're not good at music and he helps them. I don't actually know that part, but I know they're bad at something. Ragtag group of kids, there's music involved, and he's the music teacher person. And I don't know, my guess is he brings the ragtag group of kids together and they become great somehow. Or it's just, they're not good, but it's inspiring somehow. That's my guess.
I love it. I love it. There's some central themes you're picking up on, and a few you're missing a little on. So for others that may have not seen School of Rock, that's close to an accurate plot description. The only thing I would add is that Jack Black's character, Dewey Finn, is not a teacher. His roommate is a substitute teacher, and he
Gotcha.
impersonates his roommate as the substitute teacher. Then the developing these internal motives of he's trying to win battle of the bands and finds out these kids can actually play music, and so takes them and does his thing. So that was fun. I'm glad we did that. That's
Thank you.
you did great. You did really good, especially for never seeing this movie. So School of Rock released in October of 2003. So, I was 6 years old, lined up first day to see the movie. Just kidding. No, I was not. And I don't actually remember the first time that I saw this movie. It was just kind of always there. It was always in our house. It's just in the normal rotation of watching through that movie. So one of the things with, again, as I kind of talked earlier, I'm really interested in why movies are getting made and who's involved with the movies getting made. So for this particular movie, there's really three key characters that I think guided and just made the things happen. First is the director, Richard Linklater. Now, have you seen Hitman?
I've not seen Hitman. I have seen quite a few Richard Linklater movies.
Okay, yep. So other ones, Dazed and Confused, Bernie, Bad News Bears, Boyhood. So a couple movies that are popular, and Boyhood actually got him nominated for the best director Oscar that year. He is kind of funny, right? He's this very serious artistic director, been nominated, and he directed School of Rock.
Yeah, I had no idea he directed School of Rock. No idea.
And so the next person involved is Mike White, who is the screenwriter, wrote this. He also wrote Nacho Libre, the Emoji Movie, Pitch Perfect 3, and Despicable Me 4. So hit and miss, but the big thing is that he directed, wrote, and created White Lotus, the HBO series that Emmy nominated, and I think won a few for that. So big deal. And do you know much about Mike White?
Not much, no.
Okay, he's hilarious, and he plays the roommate in School of Rock, and so when he's going out doing all these other things post School of Rock, it's hard to not see him as just that character. And the big place that you see him is in Survivor, the TV show, like the reality TV show Survivor. So he's in one of the seasons, and oh my gosh, he is so funny. In his season, he is just so funny. I think he said that in a lot of ways it kind of prompted him to then go and create White Lotus. But there's this one scene where they're looking for an immunity idol, and he's just drinking wine, kind of like looking around with them, but you can tell he doesn't actually care. Anyways, it's just hilarious. And so apparently he was neighbors with Jack Black and wrote this movie, and they never really talked to anybody else because Mike White was like, oh no, I wrote this movie for Jack Black.
That was going to be my next question. Did he write it with Jack Black in mind?
Yes, absolutely. And obviously that's the third person is Jack Black. So there's a lot of great quotes and just interviews with Jack Black about this movie. You can really tell that it's something that he cares a lot about. It was sort of his breakout mainstream hit, I would say. And so with that, a lot of the interviews are like, hey, do you feel like you sold out? And he's like, no, in my mind, you just kind of have this test of, does this person still make me laugh? Does this person entertain me? Is this person still valuable as I watch them? And he's like, School of Rock is me. It is me being me and having that authenticity on the screen. And I think you can really see that. And that's something that is just really special with this movie. But I
Yeah.
found those particular lines of like thought that he's having so interesting when you now look at what his recent sort of filmography is. You know, Minecraft, Jumanji, Super Mario Bros, Kung Fu Panda 6 or whatever. And I just find myself like loving Jack Black because of this movie, School of Rock. And when I see some of these other roles, and admittedly I have not seen Minecraft, but I know kind of the dialogue around it, and it doesn't interest me that much because I just feel like it is missing some of that authenticity. Now at the same time, I'll give him a ton of credit to the way that he interacts with his fans, especially kids. He does so much and he's so good at doing that entertainment. But I think it's reached that point that he talks about where, is that entertaining for me? Do I think he's sold out? Not necessarily, but have I kind of left what he's doing behind a little bit?
Right. That makes sense. Yeah.
But anyways, he's great in School of Rock, and I think again that's what makes this so good is his authenticity with these kids. It's just amazing. The kids is it's a funny story as well. None of them are trained actors first, from what I could tell. And I shouldn't say all of them because like Miranda Cosgrove, obviously, I think they had filmed the pilot for Drake and Josh and then she got called to do this movie or something. So a couple of them were, and she has a much more established role, I would say, in this movie as well. So, and she's actually, spoiler alert, she's not in the band actually. First, they want to make her a roadie, and then she becomes the band manager. Anyways, she's great. She's really good in this movie. But they actually hired kids that were musicians first, and they basically said, "We want this to be real." And the acting, whatever, we can fill that in the back end basically and train them and do whatever they need and send them to school. And I think it really works for this particular movie. And Jack Black is so good at just engaging and kind of pulling out of them that you don't need them to be fabulous actors. So anyways, this was a pretty successful movie. It made about $131 million off of a $35 million budget. There's also this great sort of behind the scenes. Historically, the band Led Zeppelin has been very stingy about their music in movies. So there's this big concert at the end of the movie, and I guess while they were at that concert, they bring Jack Black out onto the stage and he looks into the camera and pleads and begs Led Zeppelin, gets the crowd to start chanting, begging Led Zeppelin to let them use this song in the movie, and it works.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So just again, it just feels like so many things in this movie just you're like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. This movie was just sort of destined to happen and just it worked because of everyone that was involved. This quote from that same Rolling Stones article I was mentioning, it says, over the years, it's inspired a hit Broadway musical, a TV show, and a children's book and helped popularize actual School of Rock programs for kids who want to serve society by rocking. 2 decades on, it remains a wildly funny movie with honest to God great tunes, and its kind, inclusive spirit has aged much better than most 2000s comedies. But you watch this movie and it's just gold. They just have something there that's really special. It's Jack Black, he says, that's the one that's nearest and dearest to my heart because it was so much a part of me. That character with the love of rock and roll and not really fitting in the world of rock, it does mirror my experience with the entertainment industry. It felt like the planets aligned and I got to do the movie that I was born to do. It didn't really matter if I did anything else after that. That's my tombstone. I can just chill and relax now because I did it. So obviously it means a lot to him. Movie means a lot to me. I really like this movie. It's really funny. It is just wholesome, good time to just watch this movie. So I had this question. You seeing this, not seeing this movie, who could you picture that could do this movie that is not named Jack Black?
I actually did think of someone based on what I know about the movie.
Great. Who's your person?
Robin Williams.
Absolutely. Absolutely. He could, yeah. I don't know why I didn't think of him, but that is.
I mean, with Dead Poets Society right there, and just, Good Will Hunting, everything he's done. Like, I couldn't think of a better one. I tried to think of a more modern one, and I was just like, I feel like that same kind of vein. If it wasn't going to be Jack Black, it would have been Robin Williams.
You're absolutely right. I threw in a couple other names here. Steve Martin.
Okay.
Conan. Now, Conan's version of this is less wholesome. He's more mean. Melissa McCarthy. I think she could pull this off. Also threw in a few others. Paul Rudd, Amy Poehler, and one I thought would be kind of a fun little switcheroo role reversal is I think if you switched, Sarah Silverman is in this. She's a great comedian. She's the voice of, if you don't know, she's the voice of Vanellope in Wreck-It Ralph.
Wreck-It Ralph will probably come up at some point.
Okay, great. I think there's a version here where you switch her and you switch Jack Black, and I think there's some fun things that could happen here. At the end of the day, though, it's Jack Black. Like, you can't go anywhere else. It's his movie, like you said. It's just kind of the classic one that kind of propelled him into everything else. So that's School of Rock. That's my number 5. Let's hear yours.
All right. Well, my first few picks in particular are a little more on the pretentious side, but that is just the way it's going to be. So my number 5 is 2015's Mad Max Fury Road. Now, I did scope out your Letterboxd. What the hell is this 3.5 stars rating, man?
Okay, hold on. Let's take a step back. I don't know when I watched that. You can check on Letterboxd when I did. I've mentioned early on in this podcast, I'm new to all of this, to understanding my tastes, to understanding what I like, and a lot of what happens in Mad Max I like. But it is a little goofy, and I think that's the only reason why that it dropped for me. And let me just clarify, 3.5 is 7 out of 10.
Mad Max Fury Road is arguably the best action film ever made.
Isn't one of the characters' name like Scrotus or something like that?
Listen, that's not one that I remember, but that is also not out of the question. But kind of the crazy thing about Fury Road, like at least in a lot of the circles that I'm in, it's kind of one of those things where it's like the first Mad Max is like, yeah, I think I gave that one 3.5. It's like, yeah, it's good. Their budget was also basically like $20 and like a bag of Cheetos. Like that was the budget. The first Mad Max, it was George Miller's, it was his first time ever making it. It literally was like this independent random thing that came out. It's got some quality to it. I don't think it's the greatest thing ever made. Road Warrior is fantastic. And that's kind of the thing is Road Warrior came out and people are like, oh, it's the best Mad Max movie ever. This movie's amazing. There's no way you can top this.
That's number 2?
Yeah. And then Beyond Thunderdome is the third one, which is that's when Tina Turner's in it. Again, I haven't seen it, but I've heard it's goofy. There's some problems.
Goofy. And it's not bad. It's just goofy.
Right. And then Fury Road came out and people were like, wow, we didn't think one could be better than Road Warrior, but here it is. So, yeah, I'll go into a little bit of why I love this. So it did win 6 Oscars. It won a lot of the technical Oscars. It did not win Best Picture Director or Writing, which I think is a sham. It also did not win Best VFX, which surprised me. It lost to Ex Machina. I'm not torn up about that. I think Ex Machina is amazing.
That's a great movie.
You and I talked about this a little bit, but do you know what the Bechdel test is?
Yes. So essentially, it's a test in a movie. Do 2 named female characters have a conversation in the movie that is not about another man?
Yes, that's exactly it. So it's 2 female characters. They have to have names. They have to have a conversation. And the conversation, exactly what you said, needs to be about anything else that's not a man. Mad Max Fury Road passes this with flying colors, which, again, when you look at the other Mad Max films, that's sort of crazy. And that's kind of the thing is George Miller, the director, one of his biggest critiques in 1, 2, and 3 was his portrayal of women.
Okay.
So he actually hired Eve Ensler, who wrote the Vagina Monologues. He hired her as a consultant, and she ended up actually doing like a whole program with all the actresses who played the wives and Furiosa into like delving into their characters, and some of the stuff ended up in the film, some of it didn't. But this movie passes it with flying colors, and it passes it in ways that I think are so profound. Mm-hmm. So, for example, like, I mean, for those of people can't see me because this is audio, but like, I have the short hair. I've always been more of a tomboy. Furiosa walked on screen, and I was like, my new favorite fictional character exists. So obviously, like, I love everything that Furiosa is. She's a badass. She's strong. She can go toe to toe with Max. Like, I love Furiosa. But my favorite scene is actually where it subverts expectations. So this is a little bit of a spoiler alert just for this scene. If you haven't seen Mad Max Fury Road, go watch it immediately. Come back and listen. But there's a point where the main villain, Immortan Joe, has like a straight shot at Furiosa's head. He's got his gun out. She's driving the war rig, and he's got a shot right at her, and he's about to shoot. Splendid, the wife who is 9 months pregnant, opens the door and shields Furiosa from Immortan Joe. What I love about that is in that moment, like up until that point, Splendid is sort of cast in this light of she is kind of the most vulnerable. She is about to have a baby, and literally any second. It could happen at any time. She's about to have this baby. She's vulnerable. She's obviously a wife that Immortan Joe is very enamored with. And Furiosa is, again, kind of portrayed as this very intense, strong, tough female character. And Splendid is your softer, and because of that, like, not even just the fact that she was the one who shielded Furiosa, but like because of that innate part of her, because she was pregnant with Immortan Joe's child, and because of how pregnant she was literally the only person who could have saved Furiosa in that moment. I think had anyone else gotten in the way, Immortan Joe would have been like, fine, whatever, you're done. But like Immortan Joe was like, that's my child in there. And Immortan Joe wants a perfect child, and he hasn't had one yet. And so that it was like, you could tell, like, he keeps saying, he's like, get out of the way. That's my child. That's my property.
Sure.
And I think there's something really beautiful about that. That Furiosa, while the protector for most of the film, in that moment, Furiosa could not protect herself. And the only person who could is the one who, like, visually, innately embodies an aspect of womanhood.
Wow. That's beautiful.
Thank you. I love that scene. I love this movie.
Fantastic. I could guarantee on my second time that I do watch this, I guarantee it'll be better than a 3.5.
I will say, I get your points with it being goofy. The guy with the guitar, with the fire spitting out the end of the guitar, I'm just like, 10 out of 10, no notes. This is perfect.
You're absolutely right. And I feel like anytime I've thought about this movie since watching it, I'm like, hell yeah, that movie is awesome. I love that movie. And Furiosa, same thing. I love Furiosa when that came out last year. Just no doubt. You never know when you're watching a movie for the first time and what state of mind you're in or where you're watching it, and just throw it. What even is a Letterboxd rating, right? It's just a number to define this work of art and this beautiful thing. Right. And as you just so eloquently described, how can you put a number to that, right? That's just, but we do. So, and it's fun to talk about.
And then the other reason I love it is just, I love, as much as I am here for the girl power movies, and my number 4 will get into that very deeply. I love that this one shows the magic that can happen when men and women work together. Because it's not just a story about Furious and the Wives, it's also a story about Max. And it's a story about Nux, Nicholas Holt's character. And victory does not come without those two characters, to be completely honest. I think that sometimes it's easy to lose that there is value in all of the genders. Like, there is value in these people with different perspectives and different backgrounds really working together and what can happen with that. And we're greater than the sum of our parts when we work together. And I think there's, I don't know, I love that idea, and you'll see that a little bit later in my list as well. I do kind of take note of not just minorities on screen, but like I do take a special interest in obviously women on screen and queer people on screen. So yeah, I take a special interest in gender on film, on the screen, and I think this one does things in a really beautiful way. All right, well, what is your number 4?
My number 4 is Remember the Titans.
Mm-hmm.
This is absolutely critical to my development, to my love of football and sports in general. I come from a very musical family. I come and that's great. And I also love music and am involved with that and have been involved all throughout my life. But I'm the youngest of six and we were a musical family. So nobody did any sports until I did football. And I did football because I love Remember the Titans.
Really? That's the reason you decided to try your hand at football, was because of this movie?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I would run back and forth when I was a kid, pretending that I was running through, the forests of Gettysburg with a football in my hand, and I would pretend I was at training camp and pretend I was in the big game and all this stuff, all from Remember the Titans. All absolutely shaped everything about my love for football through my life and today. So I mean, this movie means everything to me.
So you had given me a little sneak preview that this was going to be on the list, so I did watch it recently in preparation. Yeah, I hadn't seen it in years, so there was a lot I had forgotten, so I specifically watched it to be able to kind of talk about it today.
Okay, and 5 out of 5 bumping one of your movies, so it's in your top 5 too?
It is not better than Mad Max Fury Road, but it's a nice try.
Okay, just making sure.
I did like it a lot. I would say probably a 4 out of 5 for me. There was one moment I was like, why am I getting emotional? This is so ridiculous. So no, it still knows how to hit the fields for sure.
Yes, absolutely. One thing I found about this movie that was absolutely wild was the premiere. I actually found the press release that was put out for this whole event, and I just want to read some of it for you just because again, it is crazy. Game clock ticking down for September 23rd, Remember the Titans world premiere at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena. So, for anyone that doesn't know, the Rose Bowl they call it the granddaddy of them all in college football, is kind of like the most prestigious, the biggest deal of a game. So the fact that they're premiering this movie at the Rose Bowl is crazy. They brought in a bunch of schools and their football teams and cheerleaders. They dressed in their football uniforms and cheerleader outfits. The film was shown on 4 giant screens, 65 foot by 100 foot. Each screen was custom made for that event. They had a flyover by the Air Force. The USC Trojan Marching Band did a performance. Yeah, it was just a huge event. I when I read this, I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is insane. I can't think of another movie that's even close to anything like this, honestly, ever. I'm sure there's other examples, but I was like, what in the world is going on here?
Yeah.
And so this movie just had a lot of sort of that weight behind it. I think being based on a true story, there's interviews you can watch with the real life coaches on set watching the practices. It's really funny. They're like, they are not hitting hard enough. Like, they need to be going. And the other coach is like, they're going at 3/4 speed. This is a movie. Like, relax. But I think it really does speak to, yes, it's a football movie. Yes, it's a sports movie. But there is this obvious, huge underlying subplot or main plot of race relations at the time. And that's kind of the whole crux of the plot of this movie. I'll get a little bit more into that, but it was directed by Boaz Yakin, who he's directed a few movies. Mostly they look like your typical like B, C movies. A couple fun ones, Prince of Persia in 2010, which I haven't seen, but I can tell by your expression you likely have, or at least know that it's not good.
It's a movie. Like, I remember getting a kick out of it when I first watched it. I watched it a couple years ago and I was just like, First of all, Jake Gyllenhaal, not Persian.
Not at all.
And then there's just some other things that, I don't know.
Yeah, anyways, the other one that I wrote down is Now You See Me. So that's at least a fun movie. So nothing too notable about him and nothing I read or watched. He wasn't too involved. Jerry Bruckheimer, though, big blockbuster guy. He was the producer. He was the one that bought the screenplay and just kind of moved all the balls to get this movie made and talked Disney into it and everything. Some really notable actors in this movie, right? Obviously, Denzel Washington.
Baby Ryan Gosling.
Baby Ryan Gosling, gotta be the best. We also have baby Hayden Panettiere. And then I did want to read, so the screenwriter for this movie, his name is Gregory Allen Howard. He unfortunately passed away in 2003, and I pulled this from his obituary that I found online. It says, Howard dreamed of being a screenwriter as a young man, but it took him years to find success. The spark of the idea for his first film came when he moved to Alexandria, Virginia. As a new resident, he heard the story of the city's T.C. Williams High School, which won a state championship in the early 1970s when it was newly integrated. Inspired by the story, Howard wrote the screenplay for a movie based on it, Remember the Titans. It was a box office success and became a classic of the feel-good sports movie genre. He went on to write other movies based on true stories of Black excellence. And with this movie, with Remember the Titans, he became the first African American to have his spec script make over $100 million. He talks a lot about the importance of respecting each other. You don't have to have the same beliefs as anybody else, but you have to be able to respect them. Obviously, with race, you're not really talking about beliefs. Like, race is just other people, and you should just be able to get along with other people. And I think that this movie does a really good job of introducing those types of conversations. It's not necessarily perfect in its relationship with race. You get some of the typical tropes of some white saviors and that type of thing. But I think for the most part, it actually does do a really good job of, you have to establish respect. You have to learn about other people to be able to understand them. And at the end of the day, they really are your family. That's his brother.
And it's mind-boggling because I was talking to my girlfriend about it as we were watching it. I was like, it's mind-boggling that it's when Yost and Herb, like his buddy, are talking.
Mm-hmm.
And Herb tells him to go to hell.
Right.
And it's like, man, like Yost stuck his neck out for this guy. And like they've been coaching together, it said like 17 years or something. I was like, and because Yost is like willing to work with Coach Boone, like his pal wants nothing to do with him. It's one of those things that I look at and I'm just like, man, how could you do that to someone? But like, if you open yourself up to these people who are different than you, if you open yourself up to conversations, if you give a little bit of effort, things can change there.
Yes, perfectly said. Thanks for sharing all that. And I think what you said is exactly right too, of like that can be some of the issues that come for people when they watch this movie, is the like, oh, well, that was, back then, and good thing we're out now, but they happen today. They happen in real life. And it's just, life is so hard. There's no reason for us to just not be on each other's side, to not be willing to listen and to help people just to get along and do what they need to do. This movie's great. This movie's so good. I love it. Beyond that, beyond the conversations that kind of stem from it, I mean, the music in this, the needle drops, oh my gosh, it doesn't get better than that. It's very quotable. There's lots of things. When I did my rewatch about a week ago, I was like, man, I know a lot of this. And a lot of these things get kind of picked up and people just use them in daily conversations even. I actually think it's really well shot, especially having your football games happen at night. I was like, this is shot really well. How are they doing this? I don't know enough. I tried researching it, but I couldn't find enough to figure out how they did it so well. But yeah, this looks fantastic. The other thing, so obviously this movie is based on a true story, so not everything is going to be accurate. The one biggest thing I think that is somewhat of a big deal was that they weren't the only school that was integrated.
I thought the same thing, because I also did a little research.
And I don't know if that was the screenwriter's point, if that was Disney stepping in saying, you should make that. I don't know who made that decision. I don't know that you needed to. I think it works fine without that. And it does kind of put this lack of realism that I don't know that I would do that. But for you, with and I'm be honest, I'm tired of the musical biopic that seems to be every year there's at least one that has to be nominated for an Oscar. What's Timothy Chalamet's from last year, Bob Dylan. There's the new one.
Yeah.
It's going to be Bruce Springsteen and Jeremy Allen White this year. It's always happening. But the question I had for you, when does a movie cross the line for you in regards to it working when it is a true story? How much liberty can they take before it starts becoming an issue for you?
I don't always have a huge problem with some of the, historical inaccuracies because I'm like, this is a film. They're going to sensationalize it a little bit, dramatize it up for the audience. I think when you start misrepresenting characters, for example, Bohemian Rhapsody, man, they did Freddie Mercury dirty in that movie. You could tell it was written by the other members of Queen who were mad at things that Freddie Mercury was doing.
I have not seen it.
Yeah, I think when you start misrepresenting people who actually lived, that's when I tend to have a little bit harder of a time with it. And I think, like you said, to me, that's kind of a key focus of the movie is like, look, we're one of the only schools that's integrating, and this is what we're going to do. And I'm like, that's a big key point of the movie that they try to push. And that wasn't true. And I think that's kind of one of those things, too, is when it's at the crux of one of the big themes of the movie, and that's not accurate, I think that's when I kind of tend to be like, okay.
Right. Obviously it doesn't ruin it for me, but it does make me ask that question a little bit of like, what are they doing there? So to close this one out, I wrote down this quote from the real life Coach Boone. What did I do that deserves the greatest actor in the world to play my name, to play my life? And I think it's just a testament to, this is a real thing that happened. Obviously not exactly the way it shows, but in a lot of ways it was fairly accurate. They still had to come together. They still had to learn how to respect each other, and they ultimately did. And I think that's commendable at the end of the day. To close this one out, do you have a favorite sports movie?
Yeah, so, because I know you asked me to think about this, I've seen a handful of them. I don't know if I do, to be completely honest. I, in my personal life, have done boxing. So I do have a soft. I honestly, I really enjoyed both of the Creed films, but I mean, I also like Moneyball quite a bit.
Awesome.
If we're allowing TV shows into the conversation, I would say Ted Lasso.
Okay, yeah, now we're talking. Ted Lasso is incredible. Great. So what's your number 4?
Yeah, so my number 4, again, we're delving into super pretentious territory again. This is a French film from 2019.
Wonderful.
Portrait of a Lady on Fire. And we did talk a little bit. You have not seen this one, correct?
I have not. It's been on my watch list for at least a couple months. I don't know a thing about it, though. Not a thing.
It is so good. At its core, it's a lesbian love story. This is another one so it passes the Bechdel test. It does not pass the reverse Bechdel test.
Oh.
I don't think there is even a named male character in the movie.
Well, balance it out. Let's get some more of these.
Yeah, it centers around 3 women. Something that surprises people, I think, when I tell them about this is I think it's more about even the female experience than the lesbian experience. And this might actually be fun for a future episode. I had a friend one time who actually asked me, he was like, if you had to pick 5 movies that you think like summed up what it's like to be a woman, like what the female experience is, which ones would you pick? And I asked him the same question about the male experience. This definitely makes, this makes my list. It's, it's a period piece. So this painter shows up, at this island basically and meets the other main character's mother. And the mother is basically like, I need you to paint my daughter. She refuses to pose for a portrait. She is to be wed to this Italian man. We're trying to send him a lovely portrait of my daughter, and she refuses to pose. So, painter's name is Marianne, and the subject is Heloise. And so, Marianne is tasked with Heloise thinks that she's been hired just to be like her friend, basically. Like just a companion. And so her job is to like kind of memorize Heloise's features and paint them by memory without Heloise knowing that it's happening. That is how it starts. I don't feel like this is a huge spoiler. Partway through, it is revealed what's happening, and Heloise says that at that point, they've become close enough that she goes, I will pose for this painter and this painter only.
Wow, okay.
The mother ends up leaving on a trip, and so the only people left, like, really in this manner that the movie is focused on is these two, and then there's a maid as well that they kind of take under their wing as well. She's much younger than them, and they try to help her with, a variety of things. But, it's a period piece, so I went into this thing being like, this is gonna be sad. This is gonna be real sad. But the final scene is like I'm not going to talk about it because I don't want to spoil it, but some of the best like facial acting I have ever seen. It's heart-wrenching. Like it's heart-wrenching. Again, most gay movies are sad, but so you're going into with this one, but just how it comes around is beautiful. I think what's really cool about it, and why I say it's more about the female experience than the lesbian experience, is it does a lot of focus on like what it means to really see someone. So Marianne spends a lot of time literally just looking and memorizing every aspect of Heloise to put that to canvas. And so there's a scene where she kind of talks about that, where she's like, yeah, you bite your lip if you don't want to talk about something. When you start to get embarrassed, your hand comes up by your ear. I'm not saying the exact things, but she starts to kind of notice it, and then Heloise kind of turns the tables on Marianne and says, okay, well, you do this when this happens. You do this. And you can see like they're seeing each other. And it's not just this superficial thing, like they see the other person. Mm-hmm. They know that other person simply by observing them in this space. And when that happens, like, of course you can't help but fall in love when you really see someone as they are. Like, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I talked to everyone about it. It was a movie that I was just like, this movie, one of the most romantic movies I've ever seen. And I'm not just saying that, like, obviously as a lesbian woman, it's great to see representation on screen, but like, I have straight friends who are like, oh no, that movie is like the romantic movie of the decade. So Portrait of a Lady on Fire, I just, like I said, it hit me just in where I was in life at the time I saw it. I have thought about it so many times since, and it is one of those movies that I felt really, really spoke to me, on top of it is just a masterpiece.
Did it have any buzz around award season?
It came out like very tail end of 2019, and I guess from what I read, it was not the movie that they like threw in the ring as, hey, we want this one to be considered. They put in the ring, I want to say, a version of Les Mis. And so this one kind of flew under the radar as far as awards season, and then it really got more buzz over the next few years. It was added to the Criterion Collection fairly quickly. Because I watched it just a couple years ago, and at that point it was already available on the Criterion Collection.
So for those who don't know, could you explain the Criterion Collection? Because I kind of know, but I would also love an explanation.
Yeah, so the Criterion Collection is a collection of films, basically a panel of their members. I don't know exactly how that's figured out, but they kind of decide what films have like changed cinema forever, or they're like very sometimes older films you can only find in the Criterion Collection. I have old like Charlie Chaplin films. I have a film in the 1920s, silent film called The Passion of Joan of Arc that you can't find except the Criterion Collection version. So their primary job is to just kind of like find both classic and contemporary films that they just feel like have sort of or define the medium in some way. So that's what the Criterion Collection is. So in like the pretentious film circles that I'm a part of, it's typically one of those movies where it's like, hey, this got added to the Criterion Collection. That's really cool. That's really exciting. But anyway, so that's what the Criterion Collection is. So yeah, Portrait of a Lady on Fire, I know, was added pretty quickly to the Criterion Collection. It made waves very fast. I know like casual moviegoers and pretentious people who have just really, really, really loved it. Anyway, that's Portrait of a Lady on Fire. I would love to do a full episode about that movie someday because I do love it. So we have talked for a considerable amount of time. So to not completely overwhelm our audience, why don't we split this one into 2 parts?
Yes, agreed.
Cool. So let's go. We're just for the listeners. We're gonna stop here. We will catch you guys on the next episode. See you next time.